So are you ready for our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen? Our first keynote speaker is Corey Osoup. Corey has an extensive career working on behalf of children and youth in his role as an educator, senior policy analyst for FSIN, provincial superintendent for the Ministry of Education, senior manager for the Alberta Ministry of Education, executive director for education, post-secondary education and training for FSIN, and much, much more. As the advocate for children and youth, Corey's priorities will be to find ways to reduce the number of First Nation and Métis children and youth in care and to improve mental health services in Saskatchewan. Corey is doing incredible work in our community on behalf of young people. Please welcome to the stage kindly, Mr. Corey Osoup.
All right, I have 20 to 22 minutes, but I didn't see any other speakers here, so I think I get their time too. And Ryan said that they had one speaker actually go 45 minutes, so I figure if I cut it, 30 to 40 minutes, I'm okay. But I'm just kidding. First of all, I want to, thank the elders for the prayers this morning. It's always good to get things started off in a good way, and I want to recognize and honor that we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. Although I am from Treaty 4, so our treaty is a little bit better than Treaty 6. Read it. We got we don't go through the treaties there. But I'm really excited to be here today. I want to do three things with you today. First, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and where I come from. And just a little bit about, how I got to where I am today. I also want to tell you about my office and how we've transformed our office and our entire organization to truly think Indigenous, which is a pretty important thing for, a government organization to do, to transform the entire organization to really put Indigenous thoughts, viewpoints, ways of knowing at the center of our organization. And the last thing that I want to share with you today, or what I want to accomplish today, is I want to get as many of you to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our numbers are a little low, so we want to get those up. So at Sask Advocate on any of those three platforms, and you'll see us. And then you can follow what we're doing. So a little bit about me. I'm truly Indigenous person of Saskatchewan. My father and my family is from Key First Nation. Does anybody out there know where Keys is? Hey, you don't know how many places I go and nobody has a clue where we are. Because we are pretty small, seemingly insignificant. We don't have a gas station or a store on our reserve. We don't have, any big buildings, health center, RCMP. We have a band office, and we have what you call a sotoplex. So everybody knows what happens at the band office, and our sotoplex is just a big building where we have weddings, we have funerals, and on Friday nights, if you're driving through, we have bingo. So if you're ever wanting to play a good round of bingo, come out to Key Reserve. And that's where my father is from, and that's where I spent a lot of my time growing up as a young child. My mother is Métis. She's from a place called the Crescent Lake Métis. Now that's out by Yorkton. Our traditional land is now a farmer's field. But that farmer does let us come and celebrate every few years with a family reunion. But one really important thing about that is that our Métis people are starting to reclaim their land. And not the same way that we would hope, but actually some of our Métis people are actually buying back their own land with their own money and reclaiming it that way. So that's something really important. And I want to tell you something about our First Nation too. Something that I'm really proud of. Seemingly small and insignificant with one road driving through it, gravel road. We had someone in our history make history. My godmother, my cookum, Gwen Crane. She was the very first female chief ever elected in all of Canada. So it's something that we're really proud of. So if you're looking to write a good paper or if you're looking to bring a good resource into your room, talk about her and talk about how, as the first Indigenous woman, first First Nation woman to ever be chief of her First Nation here in Canada. And that's something that I really like to point out. Now, I'm married, so I can't go to the casino with you tonight. I have 5 children. I know I look a little too young to have 5 children, but I do. And one of the most things that I'm proud about my 5 children is that they all come from the same mom. I can't let Chris and Ryan tell all the jokes, hey? But as you know, in our, for me, and I say that joking, but it's something that is not normal nowadays. Like myself, my parents divorced when I was, well, they separated and divorced between the ages when I was 5 to 7 years old. My dad got remarried, and I inherited 4 stepbrothers on that side of my family. My mother got remarried, and I get it mixed up myself. My mother remarried, I got 4 stepbrothers on that side. My dad remarried, I got 2 stepbrothers and a stepsister. And then they also adopted another little boy from our reserve. And then I have 1 biological brother and 1 biological sister. And I think my brother is in the room. Are you in the room, Dave? Stand up. Oh, there. Where are you? Oh, he's way in the back there. He thinks it's church. That's my brother Dave. He's been a principal in our First Nations schools. He's now working at Oskayak School here in Saskatoon as a guidance counselor. I'm really proud and honored to call him my little brother. I also have other families in the room. I don't think I have any exes like Chris. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. But I'm not going to ask you to put up your hand because I just said I'm not going to the casino with any of you. So, we come from humble beginnings, just like any one of you. The role that I'm currently in is the advocate for children and youth. I find that it's one of the most important roles that we can have because I fight for kids every day. And I stepped into this role about 1.5 years ago, November of 2016. And I took a look at the organization and I felt that we had to do more. Some of the stats. If you look at the number of children in care in Saskatchewan, the estimates are as high as 70 to 90% of those kids are our Indigenous kids. There's over 5,000 of them that have been taken away from their families and put into group homes, put into foster homes, put into different places. And 70 to 90% of those kids are our kids. We need to bring those kids home. If you look at our youth criminal justice system, we talk about our adult system and being way overrepresented with our Indigenous people. But if you look at our youth criminal justice system alone, we have 3 or 4 facilities here in Saskatchewan. I've been to all of those youth jails. And I have yet to see one boy or girl that is not Indigenous. So I can say on any given day here in Saskatchewan that 100% of the kids in our youth justice system and our youth jails are Indigenous. 100%. That's way more than are in the adult system. So I think, we need to start thinking about that because not 100% of our kids are doing the crimes. So we should not be 100% represented in those systems. The other systems that I look into are systems like education, which is what I'm so glad to be here today. I'm very proud to be the very first Indigenous person to hold this role here in Saskatchewan. In fact, if you look across the country, there are advocates, children advocates in all of our provinces except for Prince Edward Island and Northwest Territories. In the history of all of those offices in Canadian history, there's only been one other First Nation person, Mary Ellen Tupel-Lafond in BC, and one other Métis man, Del Graff, he's currently the advocate in Alberta, to ever hold these roles. Now, if you look at my colleagues here in Saskatchewan, Chief Electoral Officer, Ombudsman, Provincial Auditor, Privacy Commissioner, Ethics Commissioner, we're all independent officers of the legislature. None of them have ever been Indigenous. So if you took us all and put us in a big picture, I would stand out for a couple of reasons. First time, of course, I'd be brown, and you'd see that little brown face standing out in that crowd. But typically, the people that get these roles are older, white males. So you would see me standing out in that crowd. But I'm very thankful that I've been put in this role. And the other thing that I'm really proud of, and this should be good for you guys, is that I'm the very first teacher to ever hold this role as well. We've never had a teacher in this position. And teachers are more than just teachers. I know as a teacher, we are advocates. We're social workers. We're counselors. We're mental health therapists. We're chauffeurs. We're chefs. We're everything for those kids in our office. So I'm very proud that I'm the first teacher. And you know what? If I had went and applied for a job in my office before I got this role as a teacher, I wouldn't have been hired because we didn't hire teachers until now. So if you ever see a job opening, I'm looking for teachers in my office because I believe we are the best advocates for children and youth because we do it every day, all day long. So the other place that we get to look into is health. And we all know the challenges that our health system is facing and our mental health system is facing, particularly with the suicide crisis that we're in. Now, I want to tell you how we've transformed our office to truly think Indigenous in a very short time here. And I also want to tell you how we've transformed our office from an office that, if you've looked at our website or if you've seen other advocates in the past, the thing that we're known for is when children die or are critically injured in our province, we get notifications, we write reports, and we give recommendations. So essentially, we waited for tragedy to happen. We waited for a kid to die, and we wrote a report about it. I couldn't just stand around or sit around and wait for the next kid to die anymore. So we've also transitioned and transformed our office from a reactive office that's waiting for kids to die to an office that is proactive, that is solutions-based, that is preventative in nature, that is looking for positive solutions across the province, across the country, and across the world in how we stop the next kid from dying. So that's not easy to do. We are a government organization. We have legislation, we have policies, we have procedures, but as the head of the organization, I was able to do some things that maybe other people aren't able to do. And this is what we did. First thing we did is we had this amazing strategic plan, 30 to 40 pages long, a big thick book like this. I took that and I threw it out the window, and we created what you call a one-page strategic plan. It's double-sided, so I might have cheated, but it's still on one page. So we've created this one-page strategic plan that truly focuses on us, what's important. And the first thing that I did when I sat down in my first staff meeting is I said we need to view everything we do from an Indigenous lens. Everything. Just because of the stats I told you, the kids that we're representing, the parents and the families and the communities that are calling our office are Indigenous. So that's the first thing I told our office and our staff is we need to do that. So we threw out that old plan. We created a new vision. You know, our vision has statements like we embrace reconciliation. We honor language and culture. Our fundamental goal states that we want to be part of positive solutions that result in better life for First Nation, Métis, children and youth in the province of Saskatchewan. And I'm not shy about that because the systems have let our children down. They've let our families down. So I'm not shy about that. And people say, well, what about all the other kids? I represent all of the other kids. I'm actually responsible for the safety and protection of over 300,000 kids in this province of Saskatchewan. But what's good for First Nation and Métis kids is good for all kids. You know, if you're creating a safer and caring learning environment in your office and you're focused on the First Nation Métis kids, I think you heard about following their voices, that's one of the things they're doing. That doesn't mean that the other kids will be forgotten. It means that they'll benefit from a safer, caring learning environment. If you're building better relationships with your First Nation and Métis students, you're going to build better relationships with all of the students in your classroom. It just raises the bar for everybody else. So that's our fundamental goal. And I have not shied away from that once. But how do we do that? Well, I've created a 4-point vision for the future of our office and for the present, I guess. And the first thing that I said that we needed to do in that vision is we need to build better relationships with our First Nation and Métis partners. As a government organization, there may have been some mistrust in the past, and that's fully understandable. So what I've told my staff is, as we're doing the first point in our vision, as we're building these relationships, and as you go out into our First Nations and to our Métis communities, I want you to do something first. I want you to close your mouth. I want you to open your ears, and most of all, I want you to open your hearts. Because our First Nation and Métis people have something to teach you. I believe that our people have the knowledge, have the experience, have the letters behind our name now. We have BSWs, MEds, BEds, PhDs. We have all of those things behind our name. But more importantly, I believe that our people have the inherent right to parent, to teach, to discipline, to take care of our own children. And that's where we need to get. And that's what I tell my counterparts at the provincial government. That's what I tell the federal government, is that our people should be taking care of their own children. They've been stolen for far too long. We need to bring them home. So the first thing that our staff needs to do is build relationships. They need to listen, they need to learn, they need to bring that back to our office, and we need to totally transform our office into truly thinking Indigenous, which is why I love the title of this conference. The second thing on the vision moving forward for the next few years is education. I'm an educator, and I truly believe that education is the key for our children and our families to break the cycles that they're in. We know those cycles. Abuse, drug and alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, violence, all of these cycles that our kids are caught up in, gangs, everything. We know these cycles. And right now, the current fix is we need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need more mental health therapists. We need more psychiatrists. And don't get me wrong, we do need that. Because there's a whole history, there's generations of our people that have been suffering. And we need those things. But we need something that's going to break that cycle. Not something that's just going to work on the symptoms. We need something to break that cycle. And I know you all in here agree with me that education is the key to that. Because our kids want the same thing that every other kid wants in the world. They want to see the world. They want to have a nice car. They want to have a home. They want to have a family. They have the same dreams and they have the same aspirations that every other kid in this province, in this country has. And if we give them an education, that opens up the doors for them for the future. And they can choose their own path. It's not chosen for them because they didn't get an education and they're going to go on social services and collect that welfare check for the next 50 years. Education takes them to a different place and gives them a different starting point. So that's why I truly value everything that you're doing here today, and all of you teachers. And I can say that because I was a teacher, and once a teacher, always a teacher, so it doesn't matter where I go. The third piece of my vision moving forward is focused on mental health. I got a book up here. It's called Shh, Listen, We Have Something to Say, Youth Voices from the North. Last October of 2016, 6 young girls between the ages of 11 and 14 died by suicide in our northern community centered around Laurentian area. I know it's not the first time, and it's definitely not the last time I hear about these things coming to my office almost every day, attempts and suicides. But we spent over a year in the north speaking to kids in the North about suicide, about mental health. And this is a report that's truly from the kids. Over 300 of those youth gave their voice. We started this process, we did a scan, and we found that there was a big gap in the research. Lots of amazing reports on youth suicide out there across the world. But there was a gap. Youth voice, youth engagement. Nobody was asking them about it. Small focus groups were done, but no significant engagement on the topic. So we decided to fill that gap. Here in Saskatoon last winter, there was a conference called Ignite the Life. Over 500 children and youth came from across Saskatchewan to that conference. And I talked to the organizer. She said we could have had 1,000 to 1,500 kids. We just didn't know, and we just didn't have enough space. And they all wanted to talk about suicide. Some of the professionals pushed back on me and said, well, if you talk to kids about suicide, they're going to start talking about it and they're going to start doing it. I said, well, sorry, you're a little misinformed. They're already talking about it. They're talking about it on their phones, in chat rooms, on social media, at parties. They're talking about it in their basements, and they're already doing it. So I'm sorry, I have to push through with this. We released this report on December 5th of 2017. First night it was released, it crashed our website. So many people downloaded it. First night, 5,000 people downloaded this report. We had to get our website fixed. First week, over 20,000 people from across the world downloaded this report. India, Russia, United Kingdom, Australia, Siberia, all over the world. 2 weeks ago, I was in Bogota, Colombia, because somebody read this report. And they asked me to come speak and bring the voices of our children from northern Saskatchewan to the world. I took their voices to the world. I committed to these kids that this was not collect dust on a shelf. I think I brought about 450 of these. So this is going to be my gift to you today. There's teachers mentioned in here. There are teachers in here. You will find yourself in here. You will find your kids in here. Use this as a resource. Talk to them. Teach them. Let them open up to you. They are amazing. They're inspirational. I cry when I read it. It's changed the way that I parent my own children. This will impact you on many levels. Their voices are so inspiring. I want you to take this and use it. And it's a free gift for you today. And I'm not even trying to sell these to you. If I don't have enough, please contact our office, and I will get you copies of the report. And you can contact our office through Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Or you can email us too. And the last piece of my vision is focused around empowering children and youth to be change makers in their community. I want to tell you one story, one brief story before my 22.5 minutes are up. Our office is the voice of children and youth. We have this amazing platform here. When we speak, people listen. When I had to put out a news release, all the TV cameras come, all the reporters come, because they want to hear what we have to say, what's going on with the children and youth in our province. I want to give that platform and that voice back to our kids. I want the kids to be the ones telling their stories. I want them to be the ones on TV. I want them to be the ones that are sharing insights into their lives. So one short story about how we can do this. Our staff was doing this report up in the north, and we met with a group in northern Saskatchewan. I won't identify the community, but a group of young people there. We started building relationship with them. And they could not remember ever having a feast or a round dance in their community. I'm sure there was. They were 12 to 17 years old. They just couldn't remember it. And they wanted to have a sober walk, and they wanted to have a feast and a round dance at the school and finish it off there. So they said, well, what do we do? So our staff said, well, go to the principal. See if you can have the feast and the round dance at the school. So this group of young people went feeling a little empowered by having a conversation with us. They talked to the principal, and the principal, what do you think he said? He said, well, we got a new floor. It was just cleaned. No. So they called our office a little discouraged. And we said to them, well, why don't you go to the leadership? Go to the chief and council, the decision makers, and tell them what you want to do. So they took our advice, and they went, and they set up a meeting, and they presented to chief and council and told them what they wanted to do. They wanted to have a sober walk through their community led by the youth. They wanted to end up at the school and have a feast and a round dance. So the chief and council said yes. So what do you think the principal had to do? He had to let them have that feast and that round dance. So for the first time that those kids could remember, they had a sober walk through their community, they had a feast and a round dance, and it ended up in their school. I could have called the chief and council, I could have called the principal and said, hey, what are you doing? These kids just want to do, reclaim their language, reclaim their culture and their community, and I could have did that. But it's way more powerful when our children and our youth are doing it. So I want to take those stories and I want to share those with the province, with the country, and with the world, that our kids are amazing and they can advocate for themselves. So that's how we've transformed our office to think Indigenous, and that's how we've transformed our office into not being an office that's just waiting for kids to die, but an office that is working with our partners and our stakeholders like you to stop the next kid from dying. So I want to stop there, and I want to put out an invitation, a self-invitation into your schools, into your communities. If you'd like to have me or my staff, I have a staff of about 21 people. We'd love to come to your communities. We'd love to talk to you, to the adults. We'd love to talk to the kids. So thank you very much for your time. I see people are lining up for the reports. Maybe I should have waited till after. But if there's not enough, please contact our office and I will get them to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep it going for Mr. Corey O'Soup.
Hey, hi. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And before you go, Corey, we have a gift we'd like to give you on behalf of Think Indigenous here, and thank you for taking the time, for being away from your office, and joining us here today. One more big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for Corey O'Soup.
Appreciate that.